Assalamualaikum to Dr. Ridhwan. We are from Group 9 and we are presenting about ENCORP BERHAD and BOUSTEAD Holdings BERHAD.
My name is NURUL and Ina binti FAHMY, matric number 297557. I will briefly describe the main business activity of the companies. ENCORP BERHAD. ENCORP BERHAD is an investment holding firm that work mostly in Malaysia and Australia to manage building projects and develop real estate. ENCORP offers general management support services alongside building and developing commercial and residential properties. ENCORP also engage in general trading, facilities management, food and beverage sectors, and property investment and project management. ENCORP also acts as a concessionaire for the Government of Malaysia, developing, constructing, and completing 100,000 units of teacher quarters. Next is BOUSTEAD Holdings BERHAD. One of Malaysia's oldest conglomerates, BOUSTEAD Holdings BERHAD dates back to 1828 when Edward Bousted launched a small trading business in Singapore. Import and export, along with shipping and insurance agency, constituted its main business operations. Bousted expanded its economic interest and started dealing in rubber at the start of 20th century. The business moved up the value chain and began managing and acquiring rubber farms while exporting latex and sheet rubber. Bousted extended its business interest to include the import and its distribution of a wide range of goods as the new nation Malaya flourished quickly. The group's business interests are focused in key sectors of the Malaysian economy through divisions. First, plantation. Second, property and industrial. Third, pharmaceutical. Fourth, heavy industries. Fifth, trading, finance and investment. The last one is subsidiaries.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is SYAKIRAH RAZANI. My matric number is 297550 and I will be doing a short analysis on the ratio. So let's start with liquidity ratios, which is divided into two, current ratio and quick ratio. So for current ratio, it is the company's capacity to repay its current liabilities within a year with its total current assets. The greater the ratio, the stronger the company's liquidity. So to calculate the current ratio, we can divide current assets with current liabilities. Now moving on to quick ratio, it is the company's capacity to satisfy short-term obligations with its most liquid assets, which removes inventories from the current assets. The higher the ratio, the better the company's ability to pay off current liabilities. To calculate quick ratio, we can take current assets and minus inventories as we need to remove them, and then we divide it with current liabilities. Now let's take a look at the data for the current ratio for both companies. So for ENCORP BERHAD, the ratio is RM1.87. This company is able to pay RM1.87 for every RM1 in their current liabilities, which means it's good, it's more than RM1. However, for BOUSTEAD Holdings BERHAD, the ratio is 0.60, which means this company is able to pay 60 cents for every RM1 in current liabilities. Now let's take a look at quick ratio. So for ENCORP BERHAD, the ratio is 1.37, which is the value is higher than 1, so it means the company is able to cover its current liabilities. However, for BOUSTEAD Holding BERHAD, the ratio is 0.42, which is the value is lower than 1. And this shows that the company is unable to cover its current liability. Moving on to activity ratios. The first one is total asset turnover. So this is something that helps the investor to understand how effectively the companies are using their assets to generate sales. The lower the ratio, the lower the efficiency of assets being used. Obviously, investors want to see first the performance of the company before investing into it. Now to calculate total asset turnover is by dividing net sales by average total assets. Now for account receivable turnover, it measures the number of times a company's accounts receivable balance is collected in a given period. The higher of the ratio, the better the performance of the company of converting credit sales to cash. So to calculate account receivable turnover is by dividing net sales by average trade receivables. Now let's see the data for total asset turnover for both companies. Starting on with ENCORP BERHAD, the total asset turnover is 0.11 times, which implies that the company is able to generate 11 cents of revenue for every RM1 it has, which is not really much. Now, for Boosted Holdings Berhad, the total asset turnover is 0.93 times, which implies that the company is able to generate 93 cents of revenue for every 1 ringgit that it has. It is much more than ENCORP Berhad, however, it is still lower than the value of 1, which this indicates that both companies have used their assets inefficiently. Now let's see the data for account receivable turnover. We can see that the ratio of ENCORP Berhad can be seen that it is higher value compared to the other company, which is Boosted Holdings Berhad. This company accounts receivable balance collected 27 times within the fiscal year, which means that it is able to collect their receivables an average of 27.49 times in a year. For Boosted Holdings Berhad, the ratio of this company can be seen that it has a lower value compared to ENCORP Berhad. This company's account receivable balance collected 10 times its account receivable balance within the fiscal year.
Hello there, my name is ARDILLA ZAHIRA binti ZULKIFLI and my metric number is 301251. So I will be presenting the profitability ratio and the leverage ratio. So in this slide, profitability ratio, this ratio has two types of ratios, which are profit margin on sales and the return on common shareholders' equity. So in profit margin on sales, it is used to be expressed as a percentage, which indicates how many cents of profit has been generated for each dollar of sales. So the formula for this ratio is net income divided by net sales. Meanwhile, for the return on common shareholders' equity, which is the second profitability ratio, this measures how much money common shareholders receive from a company compared with how much they invested originally. So the formula for this ratio is net income minus preferred dividend and then divided by the average common shareholders' equity. So profit margin on sales that can be seen in these two companies, which are ENCORP Berhad and Boosted Holdings Berhad. So ENCORP Berhad accrues a gross profit of 13.23 cents for every 1 ringgit in sales made to customers, and this actually shows a good financial health because of its 2 digits at the front before the decimal. Meanwhile, for the Boosted Holding Berhad, only accrues a gross profit of 0.69 cents for every 1 ringgit in sales made to customers, which shows an obvious slim profitability because of its 2 digits after the decimal instead of the ENCORP Berhad. So the next one is the return on common shareholders' equity that can be seen in these two companies that I have calculated and found. So in ENCORP Berhad, in the fiscal year, ENCORP Berhad actually achieved a remarkable 4.2% return on common shareholders' equity, showcasing a moderate profitability from shareholders' investment. So they are both moderate in return on common shareholders' equity. So in leverage ratios, there are two types of ratio, which are debt to assets ratio and debt to equity ratio. So in debt to asset ratio, can be seen that if the ratio is higher than 1, it means a company has higher liabilities than its assets. So the formula for this ratio is that total liabilities divided by total assets. So the next one, which is the debt to equity ratio. So this ratio, a higher ratio indicates that a company borrowing more capital from the market to fund its operations. The lower the ratio, the better the company's performance in lowering their debt for every equity. So the formula for this ratio is that total debt over total shareholders' equity. So the debt to assets ratio I have calculated in these two companies and can be compared is that both companies have lower ratio value than 1, because in ENCORP Berhad is only 0.65 ratio to 1 and Boosted Holdings Berhad is 0.67 ratio to 1. So they are both not using so much liabilities compared to the assets. So this shows that they have less debts than assets to operate their company. Meanwhile, for the debt to equity ratio for these two companies, In ENCORP BERHAD, it is 1.57 ratio to 1, and Boosted Holdings BERHAD is 1.29 ratio to 1. So both of the companies have higher ratio, which is a sign of trouble to the companies to service its debts to its equity. So this is a high concern for them that they need to consider for their own financial health and a better performance in their company. So that is all from me. I thank you, and I shall pass to the next presenter.
Next, I will present about suggestion on how the ENCORP BERHAD improve their current performance. My name is ZUHAYRA NASRIN binti Muhammad NAZRI. My matrix number is 297487. The first suggestion for ENCORP BERHAD is current ratio and quick ratio. The issue is there's potential for improvement. The current and quick ratio show good liquidity. The suggestion will be to maximize the use of current assets, negotiate with suppliers for better credit terms. The second one is total asset turnover. The issue is the relatively low total asset turnover suggests that the business might not be making the most of its assets to generate revenue. The suggestion will be simplify the supply chains and operation to cut down on asset idle times. Third suggestion is account receivable turnover. The issue is the high turnover of account receivable is encouraging. It may also indicate extremely stringent credit policies. Suggestion will be regularly assess each customer's credit worthiness and adjust the term of credits. Next suggestion is profit margin on sales. The issue is due to the low profit margin, there may be inefficiencies or high operating costs. The suggestion will be do a cost analysis to find areas where spending can be cut. The next is return on common shareholders' equity. The issue is the moderate return on equity indicates that there may be room for profit improvement. The suggestion is to increase shareholder value, take into account dividend increase or share buybacks. The last one is debt to asset ratio and debt to equity ratio. The issue is the debt to equity ratio is comparatively high despite the low debt to asset ratio. The suggestion is analyze the cost of debt and explore option for refinancing to get a cheaper interest rate.
Moving on to Bousted Holdings BERHAD. My name is SOFFIYANA binti JAMIL. My matrix number is 297715. The current ratio and quick ratio of Bousted Holding BERHAD. The issue is potential liquidity issues are indicated by the relatively low quick and current ratios. The suggestion is to assess and negotiate for better credit terms from suppliers in order to increase liquidity. For the total asset turnover, the issue is there is opportunity for improvement in the use of assets for sales generation as the total asset turnover is less than 1. The suggestion is to analyze underperforming assets in depth and think about selling them. Thirdly is account receivable turnover. The issue is the company may be able to increase the effectiveness of its collection efforts given the comparatively low turnover of accounts receivable. The suggestion is to raise up credit guidelines or provide early payment discounts in order to speed the turnover of accounts receivable. For the profit margin on sales of Bousted Holdings BERHAD, the issue is the low profit margins on sale points to possible inefficiencies in the control of costs. The suggestion is to identify areas where expenses can be cut by conducting a true cost analysis. For return on common shareholders' equity, the issue is even though it could be higher for greater shareholder value, the return on equity is currently moderate. The suggestion is to look into ways to expand revenue through new product launches or markets. For debt to asset ratio and debt to equity ratio, the issue here is the debt to equity ratio is comparatively high despite the reasonable debt to asset ratio. So the suggestion is to create a strategy to improve the debt structure and gradually reduce the debt. So that is all from our group. Thank you.